A smug bank manager thought he could humiliate a black woman in front of everyone, burning her reservation and questioning her integrity. What he didn't know, she was a new chairman of the board, and she was about to change everything. The grand lobby of Sterling National Bank was bustling with activity. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in natural light, reflecting off polished marble floors and gold-accented fixtures. Wealthy clients, dressed in tailored suits and designer outfits, were attended by eager staff at mahogany desks. The atmosphere exuded luxury, but beneath the surface, there was an air of exclusivity that made it clear who belonged and who didn't. Camille Carter walked into the bank with an air of quiet confidence. In her late 30s, her dark brown skin gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the windows, and her neatly styled natural hair framed a face that was calm but observant. She scanned the room briefly before heading to the service counter. Camille wasn't here to make a scene. Her account, which held a substantial balance, had been inexplicably locked, and she needed the matter resolved. It was a simple issue, at least. It should have been. As she approached the counter, she noticed a man in a gray suit standing nearby. His nameplate read Harold Whitman, branch manager. Whitman was in his early 50s, with thinning hair slicked back and a smirk that seemed permanently etched on his face. He was speaking with a wealthy-looking older man, laughing loudly at a joke. Camille waited patiently, but her presence caught Whitman's eye. For a moment, his expression shifted. His eyes narrowed slightly as he sized her up. Then, as if dismissing her entirely, he returned to his conversation. Camille cleared her throat politely. "Excuse me, is there someone who can help me with my account?" Whitman turned to her, his smirk fading into a condescending smile. "Ma'am, the teller stations are that way," he said, gesturing dismissively toward a line of clerks helping customers with smaller transactions. Camille didn't flinch. "Actually, I need assistance with a locked account. It's a priority matter, and I believe it requires management approval." Whitman raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "A locked account? Huh. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Camille maintained her composure. "I'm certain. I've been a client here for years." Whitman sighed dramatically and finally stepped forward. "Fine. Let me see your information." Camille handed him her account details. Whitman's eyes scanned the paper, but his dismissive attitude didn't change. He muttered. "This account, are you sure it's yours?" The question hung in the air, its implication unmistakable. Camille's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone even. "Yes, I'm sure. Can you assist me?" Whitman leaned back slightly, holding the paper up as if inspecting it for authenticity. "We'll see about that," he said, his smirk returning. Camille watched him carefully, her calm exterior masking a simmering frustration. She wasn't here to make waves, but as Whitman walked away with the paperwork, she couldn't shake the feeling that this visit was about to take a troubling turn. Camille stood at the counter, her patience wearing thin as she watched Harold Whitman scrutinize her account details. He paced back and forth, occasionally glancing at the papers in his hand with an exaggerated air of suspicion. The dismissive smirk on his face hadn't faded since their first interaction. Finally, Whitman returned to the counter, holding her documents as if they were contaminated. "Well, Ms. Carter," he began, his voice dripping with condescension. "There seems to be some unusual activity on this account. It's flagged for security reasons." Camille frowned slightly. "Unusual activity? Could you elaborate?" "I've made no unusual transactions." Whitman chuckled dryly. "Oh, I'm sure you haven't," he said, the words laced with sarcasm. "But you understand. We have to be cautious. Fraud prevention is a top priority here at Sterling National Bank." Camille's eyes narrowed. "Fraud prevention? Are you implying something about me?" Whitman raised his hands in mock defense. Now, no need to get defensive. It's just that accounts like this don't usually belong to, well," he trailed off, the implication clear. The nearby staff and customers were starting to take notice. Conversations around the lobby grew quieter as curious eyes turned toward the unfolding scene. Camille remained composed, though her frustration was mounting. "I'd appreciate it if you could unlock the account," she said firmly. "I have an important matter to attend to, and I need access to my funds immediately." Whitman's smirk deepened. "Oh, I'll unlock it once I'm sure everything checks out." He waved the papers theatrically before adding, "I'll just need to verify a few things. It shouldn't take long." He turned and disappeared into his office, leaving Camille standing at the counter. Minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The onlookers began whispering amongst themselves, sensing that something wasn't right. When Whitman finally returned, he held the documents in one hand and something else in the other, a lighter. "Ms. Carter," he said, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear, "it seems this account information doesn't add up. In fact, I'm starting to think it's fraudulent." Camille's calm demeanor faltered for the first time. "Fraudulent? That's absurd. I provided all the necessary information." Whitman ignored her protest. "We don't tolerate fraud here at Sterling National Bank," he declared, holding up the lighter. Before Camille could respond, he flicked it on and brought the flame to the corner of her account statement. Gas erupted from the lobby as the paper ignited. Camille's eyes widened in disbelief as Whitman dropped the burning document into a metal tray on the counter. "Problem solved," he said smugly, brushing his hands together as if he'd done something heroic. The crowd around them fell silent. Camille stood frozen, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of the stares, the collective shock and disbelief from the witnesses. Taking a deep breath, she locked eyes with Whitman. Her voice was calm, but her words carried an undeniable edge. "You will regret this," she said simply. Whitman laughed, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "Oh, really? And why is that?" Camille didn't answer. She turned and walked out of the lobby, leaving the stunned onlookers and a very smug Whitman behind. Camille Carter stepped out of the Grand Bank lobby, her composure intact despite the humiliating encounter. As the cool afternoon breeze brushed against her face, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She answered it without hesitation. "Camille, are you all right?" asked Lisa, her assistant, on the other end. "You sounded upset when you texted me." "I'm fine," Camille replied, though her tone betrayed her frustration. "Meet me at the cafe around the corner. We need to talk." Minutes later, Camille sat at a quiet corner table, a steaming cup of coffee in front of her. Lisa arrived quickly, her sharp eyes scanning Camille's face for answers. Lisa was in her early 30s, with a no-nonsense demeanor that perfectly complemented Camille's calm authority. "What happened?" Lisa asked, taking a seat. Camille leaned back, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Let's just say the manager at Sterling National isn't winning any customer service awards today." Lisa frowned. "What do you mean?" Camille recounted the incident, her tone steady but laced with disbelief. Lisa's expression darkened with every detail. "He burned your account statement? In front of everyone?" Camille nodded. "He assumed I didn't belong there, that I couldn't possibly have an account worth protecting." Lisa's fist clenched. "You could have shut him down right then and there. Why didn't you tell him who you are?" A glint of determination flashed in Camille's eyes. "Because this is bigger than me," she said firmly. "I needed to see how he treats someone he thinks has no power. If I'd pulled rank immediately, he'd just have made excuses. Now, I have proof of his arrogance and of the deeper issues in that bank." Lisa leaned forward, her voice lowering. "What's the plan?" Then, Camille took a sip of her coffee, her mind already working through the details. "First, I'm reporting this to the CEO and the board. They need to know how their employees are treating clients, especially in a branch under their so-called flagship banner." Lisa's lips curled into a smile. "And second," Camille set her cup down with deliberate precision. "Second, I'm walking back into that bank tomorrow, but this time, I won't be a customer. I'll be the chairman of the board, As Camille and Lisa strategized, the story of Camille's rise to power came into focus. Born and raised in a working-class neighborhood, Camille had always been driven by a desire to prove herself. Her parents, a teacher and a factory worker, had instilled in her the value of hard work and integrity. Camille excelled in school, earning scholarships to attend one of the nation's top universities. She majored in finance, quickly becoming one of the brightest students in her class. But her journey wasn't without challenges. Throughout her career, Camille had faced countless instances of bias and discrimination. From being underestimated in meetings to being passed over for promotions, she had seen it all. But instead of letting these experiences defeat her, Camille used them as fuel to rise higher. She worked her way up the corporate ladder, earning a reputation as a brilliant strategist and a fair but uncompromising leader. When Sterling National Bank's board began searching for a new chairman, Camille was a clear choice. Lisa brought her back to the present. "You know this could get messy," she said. "If this Whitman guy treats his customers like that, I can only imagine how he runs the branch." Camille nodded. "Exactly. That's why this isn't just about him. It's about changing the culture he represents." Lisa's admiration for Camille grew. "You're right," she said. "So, what's the next move?" Camille's lips curled into a determined smile. "Tomorrow, I'm not walking in as Camille Carter, the customer. I'm walking in as Camille Carter, the chairman of Sterling National Bank. And we're going to set things straight." The next morning, the atmosphere in Sterling National Bank's flagship branch was business as usual. Employees moved about the lobby, assisting clients and pretending not to notice the subtle tension lingering from the previous day. Harold Whitman, the branch manager, stood confidently at his station, unaware that his smugness would soon be shattered. Camille Carter entered the bank again, this time with Lisa walking beside her. Today, she carried an air of unmistakable authority. Gone was the polite customer from the day before. In her place was a woman with purpose, her presence commanding respect. As Camille approached the reception desk, the young receptionist greeted her nervously. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I assist you?" Camille offered a curt but polite smile. "Please inform Mr. Whitman that I need to see him in the conference room." "I won't take no for an answer." The receptionist hesitated, glancing toward Whitman, who was chatting with a teller. Sensing the unease, Camille added, "And let him know it's Camille Carter, the chairman of the board." The receptionist's eyes widened, and she immediately picked up the phone. A ripple of whispers swept through the staff as word spread. Whitman turned toward the sound of his name, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion when he saw Camille. Moments later, Camille was seated in the conference room, flanked by Lisa and the branch's regional HR representative. Whitman entered, visibly unsettled but still trying to maintain his composure. "Ms. Carter," he began, his voice dripping with false charm. "I had no idea you were connected to the board. If I'd known—" Camille cut him off, her tone cold. "If you'd known, you would have behaved differently. That's exactly the problem." Whitman blinked, his confident demeanor faltering. I was simply following protocol yesterday. We deal with a lot of fraudulent activity, and I thought you thought wrong." Camille interjected sharply. "Your protocol involved humiliating a customer in front of the entire lobby, destroying her account statement, and making baseless assumptions about her integrity. That's not protocol. That's prejudice." Whitman's face turned pale. "I assure you, Ms. Carter, there was no prejudice." Camille leaned forward, her voice icy. "Don't lie to me, Mr. Whitman. I've been looking into your record." She pulled out a file and placed it on the table. "Do you know how many complaints I've found with your name on them? How many customers have reported your rudeness, your dismissiveness, your blatant bias against anyone who doesn't fit your narrow idea of who belongs here?" Whitman's mouth opened, but no words came out. Camille continued, her voice firm. "This isn't just about yesterday. It's about a pattern of behavior that has no place in this bank, or any bank. As chairman of the board, it's my responsibility to ensure that every client is treated with respect. You failed to uphold that standard. The HR representative, who had remained silent until now, cleared her throat. Ms. Carter, we'll need to conduct a formal investigation to verify these claims. Camille nodded. I've already initiated it. Every complaint against Mr. Whitman will be reviewed, along with feedback from staff and clients. And trust me, if I find that this branch has tolerated systemic bias under his leadership, the consequences will be severe. Whitman's confident mask crumbled. Please, Ms. Carter, he pleaded, his voice shaking. I didn't mean any harm. It was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Camille said, her tone unrelenting. It was a choice. And choices have consequences. She stood, her posture radiating authority. Effective immediately. You're suspended pending the investigation. HR will handle the details. Security will escort you out. Whitman's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't do this. Camille's gaze was steely. Oh, I can, and I will. As security arrived to lead Whitman out of the building, Camille turned to Lisa. This is just the beginning. We're going to fix this mess for the clients, for the staff, and for the bank's reputation. Lisa nodded, her admiration clear. Let's get to work. The towering glass facade of Sterling National Bank's corporate headquarters gleamed under the midday sun. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. The boardroom, with its expansive mahogany table and high-backed leather chairs, was filled with executives, regional managers, and the bank CEO. All eyes turned to Camille Carter as she entered the room, exuding confidence and authority. This was no ordinary meeting. Camille had summoned the leadership to address the systemic issues that had festered within the bank and to confront Harold Whitman's actions head-on. The CEO, Robert Garrison, a silver-haired man with a measured demeanor, stood to greet her. Ms. Carter, thank you for calling this meeting on such short notice. I understand there's a pressing matter to discuss. Camille nodded, taking her seat at the head of the table. Thank you, Robert. Let's get straight to it. The room fell silent as Camille began. Yesterday, I visited our flagship branch as a client. What I experienced was nothing short of appalling. She recounted the incident with precision, detailing Whitman's behavior and the public humiliation she endured. Gasps rippled through the room as she described how he burned her account statement. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances, while others sat frozen in shock. This wasn't an isolated incident, Camille continued, her tone steady but cutting. It was the culmination of years of unchecked prejudice and arrogance. I've reviewed the complaints against Mr. Whitman, and the pattern is undeniable. She slid a thick folder across the table. These are just a fraction of the reports filed by clients and staff. Rudeness, discriminatory remarks, dismissive behavior, it's all here. And let me be clear, this isn't just about one man. It's about a culture that's allowed this behavior to thrive. The tension in the room was palpable. Robert cleared his throat. This is deeply concerning. Camille, but we must follow protocol to ensure due process. Camille leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. Protocol is exactly what I'm following. Robert, Whitman has been suspended pending a full investigation, and HR is already reviewing the complaints. But this goes beyond disciplinary action. It's about restoring trust in our bank for our clients, our employees, and the communities we serve. A regional manager raised his hand cautiously. Ms. Carter, with all due respect, isn't this a bit extreme? Whitman's actions, while regrettable, may not warrant such sweeping changes. Camille's eyes narrowed. Extreme? Let me tell you what's extreme. A manager humiliating a client in front of a lobby full of people. A pattern of bias that has driven clients away and tarnished our reputation. Ignoring these issues isn't just negligence, it's complicity. The manager shrank back in his seat as Camille continued. We're not just fixing one branch. We're addressing a systemic problem. That means implementing new policies, holding everyone accountable, and ensuring this never happens again. Another board member spoke up, her tone supportive. I agree with Ms. Carter. This is an opportunity to set a new standard for the industry. If we act decisively, we can turn this into a moment of growth. Camille nodded. Exactly. Here's my proposal. Mandatory diversity and bias training for all employees. Starting with leadership, a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior, and a new feedback system to ensure clients and staff can report issues anonymously. Robert leaned back in his chair, considering her words. These are ambitious changes. Camille, but I see your point. If we don't act now, the damage could be irreparable. He turned to the room. Does anyone here disagree with the need for immediate action? The silence was telling. Even those who had reservations about the changes knew they couldn't argue against the evidence Camille had presented. Good, Camille said, her voice firm, because this is happening, with or without your approval. As chairman, it's my responsibility to lead this bank into the future, and that future doesn't tolerate prejudice. The room erupted into murmurs, but Camille stood, signaling the meeting was over. You will receive detailed action plans by the end of the day. I expect full cooperation from everyone here. We owe it to our clients and our employees to get this right. As the executives filed out, Robert lingered. Camille, he said quietly, you've got my full support. Let me know what you need. Camille gave him a small nod of appreciation. Thank you, Robert. This is just the beginning. The bustling lobby of Sterling National Bank's flagship branch fell silent as Camille Carter stepped through the glass doors. Her tailored suit exuded authority, and her presence commanded attention. Employees froze mid-task, their gazes following her as she made her way to the center of the room. Behind her, Harold Whitman trailed reluctantly, his face pale and his steps hesitant. The manager who had once carried himself with smug arrogance now looked like a shadow of his former self. Camille stopped in front of the main counter, glancing around at the staff and clients who had begun gathering. Sensing that something important was about to happen, she turned to Harold and gestured for him to step forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Camille began, her voice carrying across the room. What you witnessed in this lobby yesterday was unacceptable. It was an affront to the values this bank claims to uphold: integrity, respect, and fairness. The crowd grew larger, a mix of employees, clients, and even passers-by who had paused to watch through the tall glass windows. Camille continued, her gaze steady and resolute. As chairman of the board, I want to assure you that such behavior will not be tolerated. Today, we take the first step toward making this bank a place where everyone is treated with dignity. She turned to Harold, her voice sharp but composed. Mr. Whitman has something he'd like to say. Harold hesitated, glancing nervously at Camille. Her unyielding gaze left no room for argument. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, his hands trembling. Harold's voice faltered as he looked around at the expectant faces. I want to apologize to Ms. Carter, to our clients, and to my colleagues. He paused, swallowing hard before continuing. Yesterday, I made assumptions that were wrong and deeply disrespectful. My behavior was unprofessional and inexcusable. The crowd remained silent, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. Harold's voice cracked slightly as he added, I deeply regret my actions, and I take full responsibility for the harm I've caused. It won't happen again. Camille waited a moment before stepping forward. Her tone was firm but calm. This apology is a start. But let me be clear. Words mean nothing without action. Effective immediately. Mr. Whitman is suspended pending a full investigation. We are committed to addressing not just this incident, but the systemic issues that allowed it to happen. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded in approval, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Camille scanned the room, her gaze settling on the employees. To my staff, she said, her voice softening slightly, This is a moment of accountability for all of us. Moving forward, we will work together to rebuild trust and ensure that every client and every colleague is treated with respect." As she finished, a smattering of applause broke out among the clients. Growing louder as the words sank in, employees began clapping hesitantly, and soon the entire lobby was filled with applause. Harold lowered his head, his humiliation complete. Security arrived to escort him out, and Camille turned back to the crowd. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Change is coming to Sterling National Bank, and I promise you, it will be for the better." Brief scene shows Whitman reflecting on his actions, though whether he learns from them remains ambiguous today after Harold Whitman's suspension. Camille Carter convened an all-staff meeting in the grand conference room of Sterling National Bank. The room buzzed with nervous energy as employees filled the seats, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Word had spread quickly about the events in the lobby, and everyone knew that changes were on the horizon. Camille stood at the front of the room, her commanding presence silencing the murmurs. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and steady. "As you all know, an incident occurred yesterday that brought to light serious issues within this branch. It wasn't just a failure of one person. It was a failure of the values we claim to stand for as an organization." The room was silent, her words hanging heavy in the air. Camille continued, her tone unwavering. "We're here to ensure that never happens again." She laid out her vision for the future of the bank, detailing the steps necessary to address the systemic issues that had allowed discrimination and bias to go unchecked. Effective immediately, she announced, "We're implementing a mandatory diversity and bias training program for all employees. This isn't a one-time session. It's an ongoing commitment to self-awareness and growth. We'll also be instituting a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior. Any employee found violating these standards will face immediate consequences." Camille scanned the room, noting the varying reactions. Some employees nodded in agreement, their expressions reflecting relief and support for the changes. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their skepticism or resistance clear. "This isn't just about avoiding problems," Camille continued. "It's about creating a culture of respect and inclusivity. Our clients come from diverse backgrounds, and it's our duty to serve each one with dignity. That's non-negotiable." As she spoke, Camille introduced additional reforms aimed at rebuilding trust with clients. These included a revamped hiring process to prioritize inclusivity, a new system for handling customer complaints with transparency, and regular reviews of employee performance to ensure compliance with the bank's values. "I understand that change can be uncomfortable," Camille said, her tone softening slightly, "but it's necessary. Together, we can make this bank a place where both clients and employees feel valued and respected." The meeting concluded with a round of applause from some employees, though others left the room quietly, their expressions guarded. Camille knew not everyone would embrace the changes immediately, but she was resolute in her mission. Camille Carter believed that real change extended beyond the walls of Sterling National Bank. As chairman, she understood that the bank had a responsibility not only to its clients, but also to the community it served. The recent events at the flagship branch had tarnished the bank's reputation, but Camille saw an opportunity to turn the negative publicity into a catalyst for progress. Her first step was to establish partnerships with local organizations dedicated to uplifting underserved communities. Camille reached out to nonprofits that specialize in financial literacy, career training, and economic empowerment. Within weeks, the bank launched a series of workshops aimed at educating people about managing their finances, building credit, and navigating the complexities of loans and investments. The workshops were hosted in the same flagship branch where the incident with Whitman had taken place. It was symbolic, a way of reclaiming the space and transforming it into a hub of inclusivity and education. At the first workshop, Camille stood at the front of a packed room, addressing a diverse group of attendees. "We're here today to equip you with the tools and knowledge you need to achieve your financial goals," she said warmly. This bank is committed to supporting everyone in our community, and that starts with ensuring you feel empowered and welcome here. The initiative garnered immediate attention, with local news outlets covering the workshops and praising the bank's efforts to rebuild trust. Camille made sure to highlight the importance of listening to the community. Change isn't something we impose, she told a reporter. It's something we create together by understanding and addressing the needs of those we serve. In addition to the workshops, Camille introduced scholarship and mentorship programs for minority students pursuing careers in finance. She knew from her own experience how difficult it could be to break into the industry without access to resources and connections. One afternoon, she visited a local high school to announce the new program. Standing in the school's auditorium, she shared her story with the students. When I was your age, I didn't see many people who looked like me in leadership roles, she said, but I learned that the barriers we face can be overcome, not just by hard work, but by creating opportunities for others. That's what this program is about. The announcement was met with cheers, and several students approached Camille afterward to thank her. You're the kind of role model we need, one young girl said, her eyes shining with admiration. The bank's community engagement initiatives began to reshape its reputation. Clients who had once felt unwelcome returned, drawn by the bank's newfound commitment to equity and inclusion. New clients arrived as well, inspired by the positive changes. Media outlets took notice, publishing articles with headlines like "Sterling National Bank Turns Crisis into Catalyst for Change." Community leaders praised Camille's leadership, calling her a trailblazer for fostering accountability and progress. But Camille knew there was still work to be done. At a staff meeting, she reminded her employees, these programs are just the beginning. Real change requires consistency and dedication. Every interaction you have with a client is an opportunity to show them that this bank values and respects them. As the bank became a symbol of progress, Camille felt a deep sense of purpose. The humiliation she had faced in the lobby was no longer just a painful memory. It was a turning point that had sparked meaningful transformation. Weeks after his suspension, Harold Whitman found himself sitting in a small, sterile conference room at Sterling National Bank's corporate headquarters. Across the table sat a panel of HR representatives, including the regional HR director. Whitman shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confident demeanor long gone. The HR investigation into his behavior had been thorough, uncovering more than just the incident with Camille Carter. Numerous complaints had come to light, cases of rudeness, discriminatory comments, and even allegations of retaliation against employees who had questioned his conduct. Mr. Whitman, the HR director began, her tone professional but firm. We reviewed the evidence and determined that your actions constitute a clear violation of the bank's code of conduct. As a result, your employment with Sterling National Bank is being terminated, effective immediately. Whitman's face fell. He opened his mouth to argue but quickly realized there was no point. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and the panel's decision was final. This is unfair, he muttered under his breath. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. The HR director raised an eyebrow. Intent is irrelevant in this case. Mr. Whitman, your actions harm clients, employees, and the bank's reputation. This decision is about accountability. Security escorted Whitman out of the building shortly after the meeting. As he stepped into the chilly afternoon air, he felt a pang of regret, but whether it was for his actions or for the consequences they had brought upon him remained unclear. Meanwhile, back at the bank, Camille Carter reflected on the outcome. Whitman's dismissal was a necessary step, but it was only part of the larger effort to transform the institution. Justice has been served, Lisa said, stepping into Camille's office with a satisfied smile. Whitman's gone, and the staff seems relieved. Camille nodded but kept her expression neutral. This isn't about celebrating his downfall, she replied. It's about ensuring that no one else has to endure what I did, or what so many others have faced. Despite the resolution, Camille couldn't help but think about Whitman's years of unchecked behavior. How many opportunities had been missed to address his actions earlier? How many clients had walked away feeling humiliated or unwelcome because no one had spoken up? Later that evening, as Camille walked through the now bustling lobby of the flagship branch, she noticed the subtle but significant changes taking place. Employees greeted clients warmly, and the tension that had once hung in the air was starting to lift. One elderly customer approached Camille hesitantly. "Are you the new boss?" she asked with a smile. Camille returned the smile. "I suppose you could say that. How can I help you today?" The woman shook her head. "Oh, I don't need help. I just wanted to say thank you. This place feels different now. Better." Camille's heart swelled with pride. She had faced adversity, exposed injustice, and enacted change, not just by removing one bad actor, but by addressing the deeper issues that had allowed him to thrive. Whitman's story ended in disgrace. But for Camille, it was only the beginning of a brighter future for Sterling National Bank. Months after the incident that had rocked Sterling National Bank's flagship branch, the institution was nearly unrecognizable. Under Camille Carter's leadership, the bank had undergone a remarkable transformation, earning praise from clients, employees, and the community alike. The lobby, once a place that fostered tension and exclusion, now buzzed with an atmosphere of warmth and inclusivity. Employees greeted every client with genuine smiles, and the changes Camille had implemented were evident in every interaction. A sleek digital kiosk near the entrance displayed the bank's new mission statement, a commitment to dignity, fairness, and service for all. Camille stood near the large windows, watching as a diverse array of clients entered the building. Her sharp eyes caught the little details: an elderly man receiving extra assistance from a teller, a young mother being offered a chair while waiting, and employees working seamlessly together regardless of background. Lisa approached her with a stack of reports. "Camille," she said with a grin, "you'll want to see this. Customer satisfaction scores have jumped by 40% this quarter. Complaints are at an all-time low." Camille took the papers, skimming them quickly. "This is good," she said, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "But we're not done yet. Progress isn't something we celebrate once. It's something we keep working for." Lisa nodded. "The new hiring initiatives are going well. 2. We've on board a fantastic group of employees who really believe in the changes you've made." Camille smiled, thinking back to the journey that had brought her here. The humiliation she had faced in the same lobby months ago had been painful, but it had ignited a fire within her, a determination to create lasting change. Her thoughts were interrupted by a client, a young black woman, who hesitated before approaching her. "Excuse me," the woman said shyly. "I just wanted to say thank you. I've been coming to this bank for years, and it's different now. Better." Camille's heart swelled with pride. "That means a lot," she replied warmly. "Thank you for trusting us." As the day wound down, Camille retreated to her office, taking a moment to reflect. The road hadn't been easy. Implementing the changes had faced resistance from some employees, and the media's scrutiny had been intense. But the results spoke for themselves. Camille opened her laptop and typed out a brief memo to her team. "Today, I saw what progress looks like. Clients feeling welcome and employees taking pride in their work. This is the culture we're building. Together, one step at a time. Thank you for being part of it. Let's keep moving forward." She leaned back, gazing out the window at the city skyline. The bank was thriving, not just financially, but as a symbol of what could be achieved when people stood up to prejudice and fought for accountability. The memory of Harold Whitman's arrogance still lingered, but it was overshadowed by the success of the reforms and the hope for a better future. Camille knew her work wasn't finished, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of pride. The Sterling National Bank was no longer just a place of business. It was a beacon of progress.